The boroughs are New York City. The burbs are everywhere else. Real estate is the ultimate game of risk and reward. It's the biggest investment most people ever make. Fortunes are made over a lifetime and lost in a day. And we're not playing with monopoly money. How do you stay ahead? Who's buying? Who's selling? And why? What do they know? We want the truth. You need an edge. Boroughs and Burbs is your secret weapon, giving you the insider knowledge and strategies you need to succeed in the high-stakes world of real estate. From Palm Beach to Palm Springs, Manhattan to Malibu, we press the experts to expose the pain, find the deals, and occasionally predict the future. That's Boroughs and Burbs, Thursdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. Because everyone can make money in real estate.
Welcome, everybody. Boroughs and Burbs, episode 144, the Portugal show. I'm so excited. I've got three fabulous guests from Knight Frank today. I'm going to hit share screen and introduce them. First, this is Boroughs and Burbs. Like I said, we are on 144. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Grace Farms. They are in New Canaan, 80 acres, beautiful ribbon building. You can see they've got great conference space and a cafeteria space on the screen. And I'd like you to go check out their website and buy some of their tea. Today on the show, we've got Sofia Baptista. We've got Marta Espirito Santo, Head of International Relations for Knight Frank in Portugal. And we've got Alex Koch de Gooreynd. I hope I got that right.
Spot on.
Oh. And he is a prolific content producer. Here he is talking about the Swiss Alps on LinkedIn. And here he is talking about the Wealth Report for Knight Frank. So he's everywhere. And today we're going to ask him about Portugal. I believe that Alex is in the Algarve, and I believe that somebody is in Lisbon. Is that right?
I'm in Lisbon.
Sofia.
I'm in Lisbon, yes.
All right. So now maybe I'll shut up and let you introduce yourselves. Who's in Lisbon?
I'm in Lisbon. Hi.
Okay. Very nice to meet you, Sophia. Oh, and before I forget,
nice to be here.
Roberto, where are you? Who are you and where are you?
I am in Manhattan, which is the center of the universe and extremely hot today. 95 degrees going to be, so, you know.
And is it a busy market in Manhattan, or are things calming down for summer? When the heat comes in, everybody stops buying real estate?
It's already been slow. We're 15, our deal volume is off 15% from last year. So it's been quite a languid pace, but next spring, you got to get ahead of it because next spring is going to be crazy.
Did all of your buyers just go over to Lisbon and the Algarve? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right. Well, so without any further ado, Sophia, Marta, Alex, tell us about Portugal. What do we need to know about the Portugal market?
Well, should we do a quick intro? Maybe there's a good starter. So, hi, everybody. My name is Alex Koch de Gooreynd. Beautifully pronounced. Thanks so much, John. I'm a partner at Knight Frank, working out of the London office, which is our global HQ. I grew up in Portugal. So I lived in Portugal till I was about 16 years old in the Algarve region. And then sadly, my parents moved out of Portugal and moved back to the UK. But I've been lucky enough to come here on a regular basis doing sales here. And I kind of oversee our network that operates throughout Portugal. I'm currently sitting in the Algarve in a really cool new project that we have here. And I'm sitting with Marta, where it's beautiful sunshine and transaction numbers aren't quite as low as you've seen, Roberto, in Manhattan. But I think across Europe, we've seen transaction numbers come a little bit lower. But anyway, I'll introduce Marta.
Yes, my name is Marta Espirito Santo. I work for Quintel and Penalva. It's a Knight Frank associate for Lisbon, Porto, Comporta region. I'm sure, Roberto, you've heard about Comporta. It's very famous in New York, but we can talk about it. And I'm here with Alex in the Algarve, supporting his presentation. And glad to be here. back to Sofia.
Hi, I'm Sofia Baptista. I also work with Marta for Quintela e Penalva. I'm based in Lisbon. Not the center of the universe, but for sure one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's a privilege to live and work in this city. And yes, I believe your Americans are coming here to buy. I'm sorry, Roberto. And I don't think they're going back to the US.
Oh,
So I want to show the screen. This is the website for Quintela Penalva Knight Frank, and these are the properties that you're promoting. And I see that they're not just in downtown Lisbon, but they're all over. So can you talk to us about the range of properties that I might find on your website?
Well, the range of price of properties you'll find in our website is pretty much a reflex of our market. Portugal is a small market. Main cities are Lisbon and Porto. Then we have all the coast. Our natural border is the Atlantic Ocean, and then Spain. So it's a very small country. And the price range, as I said, reflects our country. It's in the cities, prices are been increasing pretty much, but as soon as you go out around the cities, out of the cities, prices go down. So price ranges, I will say, will go from 400,000 euros to 20 millions.
Yeah, there are some really distinctive markets across Portugal, really. So for the international buyer, you've got the Algarve market, which covers very much the kind of holiday region. The area that Quintela, that Marta's talking about, obviously you've got the central Lisbon market, which a lot of people are using as second home, kind of weekend escapes. The Cascais region, which is the coastal area of the Lisbon area, which is much more for people who are moving home and wanting to relocate. It's a little bit sort of slower pace of life, a little bit quieter, but there's loads to do, lots of real cafe culture and beautiful old buildings, which people love. And then you've got up in Porto in the Douro region, which is just a stunning area. And Porto is it still as much as 50% less than Lisbon? Maybe not quite, maybe 40% less expensive than Lisbon, but, hugely popular as well. And then, as Marta said, there is this area called Comporta, it's been called the Hamptons of Portugal, the Hamptons of Europe. It's this uninterrupted beach, 65 kilometers long, where there are only a certain amount of areas where you can access the beach. So it's this uninterrupted, rather beautiful new market where a lot of people and a lot of your kind of clients are coming out and buying holiday homes there because they've got this wonderful space around them. So those are the sort of key areas. But as Marta says, the markets outside of these areas are still very underdeveloped, and they're very affordable. We've got a client buying a huge estate from us. You're not spending more than sort of 2-3 million for a large property. So for the huge kind of space. So it's amazing what you can get for your money as you go out of the cities. But really for internationals, they're coming into these kind of key markets.
where is Comporta? You have Porto to the north.
So you've got Porto in the north. Then as you come about halfway down the country, you've got Lisbon, which is a little bit inland on the river. I was about to say the Douro. It's not the Douro, is it? The Tagus River. And then you've got Estoril, Cascais on the coast. And then just below that, you've got this little bit which is around the Arriba, the national park, in a place called Setúbal. And then there's this little spit of land, and you can see it on the map, and it's this lovely curve beach, which is all the Atlantic Ocean. Next stop, New York. So, it's an easy boat ride for your clients just to jump on and come over. But it's as I say, an uninterrupted beach, and it's huge.
What the opportunity is right now that people are going into?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, because at the moment it's a very new market, so you're buying plots. You're not buying kind of completed homes. You want a smart new home. You come to the Algarve, Quinta do Lago in the Algarve, which is where Marta and I are sitting. We launched a house there for 20 million yesterday, which is a turnkey product. You've got everything there. The knives and forks are in the kitchen. sheets are on the bed, you know, you literally just walk in with your suitcase. Whereas, you know, and you don't have to spend 20 million, of course. This project that I'm sitting in at the moment, you know, you're selling prices about 3.5 million for an apartment, going up to 6-7 million for a house. But, you know, you can rent them out, fully serviced, gated development, you know, very safe. And that's one of the reasons why people come here. You know, international clients look at Portugal because it's affordable, it's got a great quality of life, but also more importantly that, you know, and it's a stable government, you know, it's a stable investment for you to do that. But really, it's very, very safe as a location. So personal safety is key for a lot of international clients moving in, you know, knowing that they can have, you know, I walked into a house earlier and somebody had left their phone and their car key literally next to an open door. Now, that you wouldn't do that in any major city I know of around the world. That would be gone and the car would be sold to somebody down the road within a heartbeat. In Portugal, it just doesn't matter. You know, it's a perfectly relaxed location. So it's a very good place to be.
Can we talk a little macro? Because when I think of Portugal, I think of immigration. Just from a standpoint of a lot of people left. But then when COVID happened, a lot of people came in to kind of get away from other places. And the immigration situation it fluctuates. And they were incentivizing a lot of people to come back, Portuguese people to come back. And they were incentivizing a lot of people, foreigners, to come and buy, and even paying to have people come and things like that. Where does all of that stand in the whole cycle?
Sofia.
Well, I would say that first, Portugal was not affected by the pandemic in terms of the real estate market. A lot of people started looking at Portugal as a great refugee from all the disgrace that was going on around the world. Of course, we had our problems, but we made it out pretty good. And because of what Alex was saying, like quality of life, safety, and Alex didn't mention this, but for the Americans, one of the great advantages of investing in Portugal, moving to Portugal, is that you have a public healthcare system that is free. And so this attracts a lot of people. A lot of foreigners moved to Portugal. You were mentioning that there was a lot of immigration, people left the country. Yes, they did. A lot of people left looking for better wages, career opportunities that they couldn't find in Portugal. But the fact that since then we were able to attract a lot of investment also helped our economy. And so the country now is doing much better. Like Alex was saying, it's politically stable. And so we now have a lot of foreigners living here. We estimate that around 10% of the population are foreigners that moved to Portugal. In Lisbon, this percentage gets to 21%, so it's a lot. A lot of people moved here. And like Alex was saying, also you can still find great opportunities to invest outside the big cities and in areas like Comporta. So I think it's a place that people really are still looking at as an alternative to move or to invest.
But Sofia, would you say, so, you know, if I look at my family, so my family moved to Portugal back in 1969, when I would say Portugal in those days was a very different place. You know, there was a lot of poverty, and I could see a lot of people leaving the country to go and get good jobs in other areas of the world and other parts of Europe. When Portugal joined the EU, which was when?
In the 1995?
87.
Was it? Yeah, you know,
95, 6, 7, around there.
The level of investment, infrastructure improvement, you know, the quality of education, of hospitals, all of this has just gone, you know, they've certainly taken advantage of the, you know, the benefits of the EU membership has really, really reaped its rewards. And then Portugal's looked at a number of tax advantages that have helped, you know, encourage people in investment visas, etc., to encourage people to come and invest here. And so that's why for a lot of international clients, you know, if we look at this year, there's about, I think they have a figure of 2 billion people are going to be making voting this year in countries around the world. And so when you have an election coming in, there's a lot of concern out there about what that might mean when it comes to taxation changes, etc. And one of the big things, we've got an end of a process in the UK called the non-dom status, which has been muted to be leaving us. And people are leaving because that means that they'll be subject to UK inheritance tax, which is a 40% on your global assets, which is quite a significant sum if you've not had to worry about it before. In Portugal, there's zero inheritance tax. So, there are things like this which really make an impact, and they encourage, investment from international families to move in. And then you've also got, and you guys will tell me more, but in Lisbon, it's a real kind of tech hub, and they're really keen on helping startups, etc. So, the cost of hiring staff, of the office space, etc., is a lot less than other sort of European centers. So that's why that popularity of Lisbon is really helped.
Yeah, and it's a very easy city to live in. So you can work in Lisbon and go for surfing at lunchtime. You have time. I mean, so this attracts a lot of young people and digital nomads, tech guys, etc. But one thing I wanted to say that is funny is that we are an immigrant people. Portuguese, they used to immigrate in the 60s, 70s. We immigrate to Brazil, we immigrate to Europe, to France, to Switzerland, to Germany. So we know what it means to leave your country and come to a new country. So we know, as we know what it means, we are very welcome people. And you won't find anyone in Portugal or in Lisbon at least, or Porto, or the big cities that won't speak, everybody speaks English. Okay, because we had to move out. We have to find better ways of life and better countries to work. So we really are welcoming people from all over the world.
So is a large part of your market also secondary homes, people that live in London, people who live in Paris, people who have second homes that are particularly in the Algarve?
I would say in the Algarve probably more so. And actually pre-pandemic, that was definitely our principal market, was to second home buyers who would buy a nice apartment or a nice house and have it rented out when they weren't here. They'd come here during the summer for a few weeks. I think that's changed. If I talk to our office in the Western Algarve, which is near a town called Lagos, closer to the Atlantic coast, there's waiting lists for every single private school from the amount of families that are moving in now. So I think, at the end of the day, if you're flying from Faro Airport, you're 2.5 hours to London. So it's really not a big deal on an airplane to be able to go off and to go to a meeting in London if you need to go in for a day or a couple of days. So people are quite often basing themselves in Portugal and then being able to work more internationally where they need to. When I come with my family, we often fly to Lisbon and then travel down to the Algarve where I grew up, because it's 2.5 hours on an empty motorway. I mean, it's not exactly a difficult drive to get to Lisbon, and then you're in a capital city and then you can fly anywhere in the world. There was actually some international flights due from America to come into Faro, which is still being discussed. So I think, we will start to see that happening. Direct flights from Newark, I believe, into Faro.
That would be
into Lisbon.
That would be a big boon for the market there, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you could already get them to Lisbon, but which is why we see, a lot of American families looking at Comporta and looking at some of these markets, and they're definitely in Lisbon and Cascais. But to come into the Algarve market where you've got these sort of turnkey, I was driving along with a colleague earlier and looking at some of these houses, and he does a lot of work in the US. And he was saying, this feels like I'm in Beverly Hills, some of these houses. They're very, very contemporary, very smart and turnkey, and that's the sort of quality product you're starting to see in the Algarve, and we're beginning to see in Cascais now as well.
About 2.5 hours to like Faro, for example, from
yes,
Lisbon.
But
how far is Porto?
I was just going to add something to what Alex was saying. The direct flights to Lisbon connect with 8 different cities in the US, the major cities, and you have daily flights, several daily flights to Lisbon. And to answer your question, to drive to Porto, it takes you 3 hours, but to drive to Comporta, it's only 1 hour. And to drive to the Algarve, it's 2.5 hours. So for an American, this is nothing. Sometimes people drive this every day. It's nothing. And
for Londoner, that's rush hour traffic, driving about a mile. So it's.
I know. I always make fun of myself every time I have to go to our office in Porto, and I think, oh my God, I need to drive for 3 hours. Because for me, it's like going on vacation. I drive 3 hours if I need to go on vacation, not to go to an office. So things are different, but we have a great highway system. So the country is all connected with all the major cities are connected with a great highway system that allows us to get anywhere very fast. It's just for us that it's such a small country that if you drive for 3 hours, you can be in Spain. So
we're very lazy.
In regards to driving.
In regards to driving, yes. Or not lazy, we're very spoiled.
Roberto, it's the quality of the seafood and the wine. You see, that's the issue. They don't want to leave,
Yeah, I can see that. That's why you're not in England.
Yeah, well, you happen to find me here. It's just doesn't happen too often.
So, tell me, let's just say I was interested in purchasing a property there. What sort of taxes, what sort of costs, soft costs outside of the price would I be looking at?
I'll answer that one. Well, considering registrations, notaries, etc., and the tax on the property, you should think about an extra 7% to the purchase.
That includes brokerage fees, attorneys, all sorts of.
If you're buying a property, you don't have brokerage fees.
It's on the seller.
It's on the seller only. Okay.
Oh, but it's incorporated into the price.
Yes, it's incorporated into the price.
And what are the brokerage fees there more typically?
Usually around 5%. That's the most common. But the one thing that I should highlight is that if you buy a property, you have the annual tax, like you have in the US, and the annual tax on the property is around 0.3% of the value, the estimated value on IRS. So it's a very, very low value.
Yeah, that's really low.
Very low, yes.
And if you, Sophia, if you look at the service charges, typical service charges, I suppose, annual charges for in a condominium or something, what would you expect to be paying?
Around, depends, obviously depends if you're looking at a condominium that has a swimming pool and gardens and etc. But if you're not considering any of this, I would say maybe €2 per square meter a month.
Yeah.
So it's easy to find an apartment in Lisbon with 2 bedrooms, and you pay probably 60-80 euros per month.
So can we let's just say I had, and let's just compare. So let's just say I had $2.5 million to spend. What sort of property can I get in Lisbon versus what sort of property can I get in like the Algarve?
Well, if you have $2 million to spend, I would say you have several options. But one of the options would be between Lisbon and Cascais, which is on the coast, and everybody says it looks like California. Very popular among Americans. Great quality of life. Half an hour from Lisbon. Great, and you can find a nice townhouse with 3-bedroom apartment, 3 bedrooms, or you can find a 3-bedroom apartment in Lisbon. So, and then depends if you're in a condominium that it has pools and nice sea views, etc. $2 million won't get you this, but you will find a very, very nice 3-bedroom apartment in a beautiful location, beautiful finishings, etc. Nice property for $2 million. Yes.
And the Algarve, that doesn't get me anything.
No, the Algarve does, absolutely. I mean, if you look in the Quinta do Lago, which is probably the most expensive real estate in Portugal, I would think, then yeah, so in the middle of Quinta do Lago, we're probably looking at a townhouse or a decent sized apartment. There aren't that many of them. It's mainly larger villas. But surrounding Quinta do Lago, Quinta do Lago is one kind of, it's a golf course project development area. It's not gated, people can drive in and out. So what we find is that there are a number of locations just dotted around Quinta do Lago, which still have access to all the restaurants and everything else, perfectly safe, perfectly nice. You're getting a nice villa, 3-bedroom villa with a little pool, no problem. Go along to the Western Algarve, and actually the Western Algarve, you're looking at a much bigger 4 or 5-bedroom villa, big pool, nice plot, view of the ocean. So we actually did a study. We have it within our wealth report, which Knight Frank produces every year. And we do a part of the wealth report. We have a section where we have a little pagoda, and we say, like, you've got $1 million. How many square meters does that buy you? So actually, we did this exercise for a presentation I just gave here to some people, and we were looking at if you look at Quinta do Lago, you're getting 67 square meters for your $1 million. If you look at the Western Algarve, you're at 206 square meters for the same amount of money. So you can see the difference really as to what you're going to get for it. In Lisbon, I think we were about 77 square meters for your same million. Comporta the same as that, and then Cascais and Comporta was 77.
Yeah.
And then Lisbon was 106, I think.
Yeah.
So you can see the range, but that really, Lisbon itself, it's probably nice apartments, city centre. Cascais, as Sofia says, it's a lovely townhouse. Quite often we saw a great one in Cascais the other day, which was, a number of apartments with a central little swimming pool, but shared between like 4 apartments. It was great. Right slap bang in the middle of Cascais, and that was that sort of price range.
How is Portugal like Florida? We think of Florida, for a long time, people went to Florida for the weather and because it was cheap. But now we've done a few shows lately, like the Palm Beach show, where they're talking about Palm Beach as Wall Street South, as a place. It's not just a place for your second home. It's a place where you can work and you can commute in for the weekend. And so they talk about their transportation. They talk about the jobs market. They talk about the high tech. I'm hearing some of the same parallels in Portugal. It's not the same old sleepy, I go for the weather and I go because it's inexpensive Portugal that we grew up with, right?
Yeah.
Well, John, it's interesting you say that. You're right to a point, but I think it's very much, as we mentioned a little earlier, it's very much down to certain pockets. If you're in the Quinta do Lago, Val de Lobo area, then you are, this is Chelsea on Sea. It's London and Dublin descends on Portugal. So it's over 30% of the buyers in the Algarve are international buyers. So yes, it is very like that. But 10 kilometers from the coast in the Algarve, it's traditional Portugal. You're in the middle of nowhere, and you're buying a house for a very reasonable sum. So I think it's like all of these things. If you go to the key areas around Portugal, then yes, prices are getting higher. They're definitely because stock levels are still low. So you've got a lot of popularity and a lot of demand. But, if you look at, for example, we talked earlier about the area of Comporta. Comporta has now become a brand name because the village of Comporta is a tiny little village with some really cool cafes and bars and little shops, but it's a tiny little local village, and everyone's in flip-flops and it's totally chilled and relaxed. But Comporta has now become this brand name and stretches all the way down to a place called Melide, which is how far? 20 minutes?
20 minutes?
Yeah. So you've now got that whole area because that popularity of Comporta, brand name Comporta, has really kind of risen. And I think, that's where there's still opportunity there, but it's, it is getting limited in those key areas. I agree with you.
So you talked about Comporta. You said it's really about buying land and then creating your own. So are there big entities that have bought big swaths of land and trying to subdivide it, or is it still individually owned land? Like, what is the landscape of that?
Well, there are big projects coming up. So as Alex was saying, Comporta is a tiny village, and the area around was a privately owned state, okay? But what we now called Comporta drives from, yeah, you're in it. It's from Troia to Melilla. So it's 60 kilometers, well, not 60 kilometers from Troia to Melilla, should be around 40 kilometers beach. And all the inland, which we call Comporta, there are now big projects coming up. Yes.
If you just go onto the sort of satellite image, you can see, probably you'll see the beach. But yeah, perfect. There you go.
So you
all
see
of that's one long beach.
You see the red line?
Yeah.
That's the private owned land, okay? That's private. So this is pretty much protected. 2 projects only are coming up in this area, big projects that were developed some years ago, but that are coming up now. And then if you zoom out, please. Go down. So that's Melilla, go down. So that all this area is being developed, okay? But it's a very preserved area, okay? So construction is very restricted. You cannot build on the sea. You cannot build on the dunes. Dunes are highly protected. So it's mainly projects inland, gated communities.
So does that make it more exclusive, or does that limit?
No, it makes it more exclusive. And one of the projects, big projects that are coming up, will have 2 major branded residences, international branded residents, that one of them will be the first in Portugal. So this is quite an interesting area, because it's all about barefoot chic, you know. It's very easygoing, very jet setter, but very no paparazzis. People go there, they don't want to be seen. Louboutin has bought huge amount of Louboutin, the shoemaker, huge amount of land there. He has an hotel there in Melilla. So it's very upscale, but very discreet.
So when
your
the New Yorkers
sandals have red bottoms? So the sandals have red bottoms?
Yes.
Of course.
Not anymore. Not anymore. Your feet has red palm.
So when New Yorkers went to Florida, you began at the top of the hour, you talked about regulatory changes and tax changes that is causing possibly Londoners to spend more time and maybe move their wealth to Portugal. And I still see the parallel with Florida. What we saw is that as the wealthy moved to Florida, the restaurants, top New York restaurants, followed. Are you starting to see, that's what I mean by the sleepy Portugal, are you starting to see it begin to transform with new investment where the businesses are following the wealth to Portugal, and you're starting to see fancy restaurants, fancy shoe boutiques, fancy shopping, all of that's coming with it?
Yes.
Yeah, Louboutin
Yes.
opened an hotel, but not a shoe store in Comporta. Okay?
Yes, but
we're far from it. But
yes, but in Lisbon, we are witnessing exactly what you were saying. Lisbon is not a sleepy city. It's a very vibrant city, very cosmopolitan. To give you an idea, Lisbon area, which is the district of Lisbon, has 17 Michelin star restaurants. So this gives you an idea. You can find all the great shops in Lisbon, all the great brands, the luxurious brands, everything is in Lisbon. And some of them also in Cascais. So yes, and we have big plays like you could see some of them in New York, and some of them come to Lisbon. So we have big concerts. Taylor Swift was here last month. And so
Taylor Swift
we
gets
have,
everywhere around Europe at the moment. Yeah,
yes,
she's everywhere.
yeah, but Lisbon was one of the cities that she chose, and she was
Yeah.
here for 2 days. So we have all of that you were saying. Yes, the people are coming. The prices obviously are going up because, like Alex was saying, the supply is much lower than the demand. So we don't expect prices to lower. But you have all the great advantages of the big cities, but in a safe environment, very safe, and still very authentic, very traditional, with great food and wine. Also, like Alex was saying, yes, it's true, and the friendly people where everybody speaks English, which is great.
John,
Very easy to come here,
sorry.
to move here. Sorry.
No, apologies. But John, you asked me about the sort of Florida sort of analogy. You know, the big difference with someone like a Comporta is it's very protected. So as Marta was saying, you know, there's very limited land parcels that are constructible because it's such a protected area. So while that whole area, yes, is having new projects coming in and some really exciting new projects, which will have full services and these amazing hotels, they are spread out. They are not next to each other. You don't have high rise followed by another one. The construction is going to be low density, so it's like maximum 2 levels. So even if you've got a Six Senses moving in, it's 2 levels. It's not 24 floors. So you're never going to have that impact on the local area. The whole concept and the idea of somewhere like a Comporta is that it's total escapism. You know, you go there because we all lead crazy busy lives. We want to go there and leave the mobile phone behind and just go out and enjoy the outdoors because the weather's great. And so that's what people go there for. You know, if you want to drive around in a Ferrari, you don't go to Comporta. You go somewhere else. You know, you go to the Côte d'Azur, Monaco, or somewhere like that. Much more your bag. Comporta is for you to turn up and be able to sit around in bare feet and drive a Jeep.
It's not the Hamptons. It's not the Hamptons, because you talked about just a 2.5-hour drive, and Roberto knows 2.5 hours out to the Hamptons, but you do take your Ferrari.
Yeah, well,
there
maybe
is
that
a
will
scene.
happen in the future. Maybe that will happen in the future.
It's not the same vibe as the Hamptons.
It's because of the beach, yes. And
Comporta used to be a great refugee that only the Portuguese knew. We used to go there on vacation or just for a weekend, a perfect romantic getaway.
Is it like Buzios in
I would say I didn't have a great experience in Buzios.
Well, it used to be. It's like Buzios in the 60s.
Yes, it's great. It's
or like Ibiza in the 70s.
It's very authentic.
Yeah,
but at the same time, very charming.
It's all just starting because, you know, as Marta says, it was privately owned until what, 15 years ago? So something like that, you know, so it's all starting. So for clients moving in now, there isn't a resale market because the houses didn't exist. So, you know, that's why you're having to buy that plot of land, and people are quite relaxed about it. You know, whereas you come south into the Algarve and there is this established market, you can buy second homes, and developers are coming in and constructing these sort of mega homes that are ready to move into. You know, that'll happen in Comporta in the future, but not for the moment.
So let's just say I had a plan. I said, listen, you know what? I want to kind of get in here in the early stages. And I want to have, want to spend $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million on something that, that I can leave to my daughter. And in 20 years, it's going to be, part of like, what's the strategy to get into that, to get in there?
Where would you go? Where would you go? Now, I'm going to be telling you west because it's still very affordable. What other, I mean, maybe where we were this morning, you're going over towards Tavira. The Eastern Algarve, you talk about these sort of smart restaurants coming in. Quinta de Lagos. So I'm staying in Quinta at the moment. This morning we went to go and see the most stunning house.
Of course you are. You're staying in the.
Well, it's where I have to be. If I have to, you know what it's like. You just, you got to do what you got to do. But if you go towards the Spanish border on the Algarve, you go to near a town called Tavira. So just sort of, going over towards the right of the screen, so to speak. And this area is slightly undiscovered by international clients. We don't see as much demand for that area. But I mean, you know, we went and sat down and had a cup of coffee. It was €1 a cup of coffee. Whereas in Quinta, I think they're probably €5-6 a cup. So, you know,
Spain, sorry.
No, Tavira. We're on Tavira.
Tavira? We're in Tavira.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
on Tavira.
sorry.
So around that area, you know, you've got this sort of beautiful beaches, again, very undiscovered. It's tidal in between the mainland and the beach. So, you know, there's little boats to get you there and everything. It's very charming, and that's authentic local Portugal. And so it wouldn't be surprising to me that we'll start to see that not develop massively, but the popularity of it increase. So
How do I get there? Can I take a direct flight to the Algarve?
Yes, you take a well, not from the US as yet, because they were going to open up a flight from to Faro from Newark, but that's been put on pause. They have, I think it's weekly flights from Toronto. Otherwise, you're flying via London or Paris or something like that. But
how far is Faro from
Lisbon?
Or like Lisbon and
Yeah.
get a connecting flight to Faro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
either they do that or it's 2.5 hours from Lisbon on a drive.
How far is Tavera from Faro?
Half an hour.
Half an hour.
Half an hour, 40 minutes max on a
Half
motorway.
an hour.
Tell me this, from a standpoint of regionally, like what is the difference? Because you're so close to Spain that if I were to purchase just into Spain, more or less, and have at least the terrain and the topography would probably be fairly similar, what's the difference?
How do I know I'm in Portugal, not Spain?
Well,
Well,
first,
you're
because
in
of the
Spain,
people.
No, I'm joking. No, we all love Spain.
They're hermanos, okay? Don't. But at
We
the
love
moment,
them, but
you
they can
don't-
only come on vacation.
You're in Spain. You're in the...
How do you realize when you're in Canada or in the States? That's the same question.
Oh, that's
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So sometimes you don't realize, you just speak another language, which is not the case between Canada and the States. So they speak Spanish, we speak Portuguese, which, by the way, is one of the most spoken languages in the world. I think Portugal is more affordable. And the landscape, well, in terms of nature, it's pretty much the same, but in the coast, Portugal remains very undeveloped compared to Spain. So in Spain, you'll have buildings on the ocean front. You don't have that in Portugal.
And I tell you, from an international point of view, the Portuguese pretty much all speak English. I'm not sure the Spanish all do.
Yeah,
In
no.
the main centers in Spain,
Mm-hmm.
Marbella, Mallorca, Madrid, Barcelona, all these places, of course, everyone speaks English. But you go to these little tiny villages in the middle of nowhere, they won't speak a word of it. In Portugal, most Portuguese have an understanding or an ability to speak some form of English.
Because they lived in New York, or in Boston, or in Toronto, so they speak English.
So it just makes, as an international buyer and visitor, it just makes your life that little bit easier. If you don't understand the language or you don't want to get involved in the language, that you know, you can still negotiate your way around a restaurant reservation, a set of new tires for your new car if you need, all that sort of stuff.
Yes, and it's more affordable, yes.
I want to get back to Roberto's question about a legacy, the 20-year plan, leaving something to my kids, a great long-term investment. When we did the show on the south of France, they talked about 5% interest rates, and they talked about the amount of foreign investment coming in, and they talked about the different trends where the Russians were sort of out. Americans wait until after the election to start buying up on the south of France. How can you talk to us about the long-term view, who's coming in, and the investment potential?
So traditionally, our top nationalities investors are Brazilians, French, UK, Germany, Turkish, but US are, for the, I think, Sofia, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the last 2 years is the ones that increase the more.
Yes, for the past 3 to 4 years are the ones that have been increasing the most.
They're not over Brazilians, they're not bigger, the community is not bigger than Brazilians, French, etc. But yes, people are still interested in Portugal because it's still an opportunity. So for the legacy, I would say, if you're not buying in the center of Lisbon or in Quinta do Lago or in Quinta da Marinha, which is a very chic area of Cascais, you will buy something that will value, I think, 10%, 10 to 20%.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at the Alentejo, which is the area behind Comporta, if you imagine you go inline from Comporta, that whole section of the country, the Alentejo, is, I think, massively underdeveloped. You know, you drive down the motorway and there's just nothing either side of the road. And we're beginning to see a few people explore some of the country areas. So if you just zoom out a little bit, that area there, but basically anywhere between kind of Lisbon and down to the Algarve. So can I ask you to zoom out on that map a little bit?
Even Setúbal, which is the city you see on,
So that whole southern part leading all the way down, all of that area there, I think, you know, that's really interesting. If you can find a nice piece of property there, which you can develop into a, you know, we're beginning to see a few more eco resorts coming into the area. If you could convince, you know, if you bought your granddaughter a nice piece of land with a nice house on it, that was within easy access of the ocean. So we're talking 15, 20 minutes away from the ocean, maybe half an hour. I think that's an amazing opportunity because the prices there are still incredibly reasonable compared to the other major centers, and they're totally undiscovered. So for me, that's probably got the biggest area for potential increasing. I still think that Comporta will see a huge increase in value, even though, because if you bought a plot of land today, you can develop your own house. And I think even the projects we're seeing in the market now, where you're putting a million nine or something euros into a plot of land and then building out a house, you're going to see a turn because there's no resale market yet. So when these come to the market, you'll see people who have that immediate desire to want to buy and move in straight away, which is what we see in Quinta. So there's still growth potential there. But for me, that countryside area, I think we'll see a huge interest in time. And it's sort of undiscovered. So that's where I'd go.
Sounds like Santa Barbara. The parallel might be Santa Barbara, which for LA, you know, once you're done with LA, you've got to make a 90-minute drive, but it's totally transformed landscape, totally different vibe. You know, just going a little bit up.
Santa Barbara, as I remember, is on the sea, right? That's not on the sea. So it's inland, but half an hour from the sea.
What is an hour? Sorry, and less than 2 hours from the airport. You know, so I mean, that's the sort of thing. Sorry, Sophia, I cut across you.
No. I was going to add that I believe that anywhere in the big cities or in the surrounding areas of the big cities, in terms of legacy, it's going to be a great investment because the cities are small and the country is trying to develop outside the big cities. And there are several small villages along the coast in Lisbon and also in Porto that could be a great option in terms of legacy, because if we're talking 10 to 20 years from now, if nothing happens, obviously, no wars, nothing like that, it's going to be a great place to be in, and I'm sure that the prices will be much higher then. So I would say those are great options to invest. Apart from Alentejo, like we were saying, that it's also a great alternative. The country is still developing. It's
Sophia, you mentioned wars. I mean, you've been a neutral country ever since I knew. So yes. The wars don't really happen. I was here when the revolution happened. I think one person died from the revolution, and I think one person shot himself in the foot. But otherwise,
I was too young to remember.
Injury-free. So, you know, when we talk about a safe country,
yes,
you know, globally,
it is. No, what I mean by wars,
it's a pretty good option. Am I right in saying a lot of the European royal families came to Cascais during the Second World War?
Yes, they
They
were.
did, didn't they?
They were.
Because it was
Cascais.
safe. So
And it was
Yes, yes. I meant wars around the world, unfortunately, with all that we've been witnessing, we don't know. But imagining that everything will go the way it has been, Portugal is now on the radars, and I think it's not gonna leave the radar because it's becoming popular, and we can understand why. If you live here, you would understand why. It's a great place to be.
You talked about the tax changes a little while ago, and it's top of mind here in America, where we see California's lost 500,000 people in the last few years to low tax states, Florida, Texas, Tennessee. So can you talk to us about, can you explain that again, why tax changes may contribute to Portugal's growth and why it may be a good investment from a tax point of view?
you guys, maybe Sofia, do you want to start with this one and I can maybe add to it?
Yes, well, Portugal has had some incentives to attract investments that for the time being, they have ended. But we had elections in March and our government changed. It's always very similar. We don't have the far right or the far left. And although we had a socialist government for a while, it's not the far left socialist. So it's all very, very similar. And now we turned a little bit to the right. So we believe that the government now will put in place again some of the programs that they had to attract investment. And usually that means that they will give tax incentives. So
on the real estate or income tax? Because you mentioned earlier
income tax.
So
Mainly
wealthy Brits are looking right now to move their residence to Portugal.
To Portugal, because they could. So as I mentioned earlier, so we share our building in London with a firm called BDO, who are a big accountancy firm, global accountancy firm, and they've been working with us very closely over the years because there was a number of tax arrangements that were advantageous. There was one called the non-habitual residency, where you are paying a flat rate of 10% against any pensionable income and any income from stocks and shares. So it was really encouraging kind of the wealthy retirees to come into the country, and they were paying very limited tax. That left, or that stopped at the end of last year, and we were really worried actually whether that would have an impact on the market. But asking the team here, they say that probably only about 5% of their buyers took advantage of the NHR because they're coming here for other reasons. But I asked BDO and said, listen, are you still recommending Portugal as a good location for a tax jurisdiction? And they said, and I've got a list here, so I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. But he said, there's no wealth tax, there's no gift or inheritance tax. There's an exemption from stamp duty is available for transfers of property if you're giving it to a spouse or ascendants or descendants. There's also a new thing, which is called the new skilled workers regime, a 20% flat tax rate for 10 years. For skilled workers, an exemption on dividends, interest, royalties. So they're really coming up with these ideas to try and encourage younger people to come in and these sort of startup businesses. So it is all about income tax. And I think, you know, we've seen a massive increase in the Italian market because of their flat rate of tax that they've done. So I quite agree with Sofia. I think the new government that's just come in now are actually going to be looking quite carefully at how they can encourage investment from, you know, wealthy individuals from around the world. If we look at the ultra high net worth space, so these are people with $30 million plus, which the Wealth Report tracks. Portugal's got 800 of them in the country. Compare that to France, they've got 25,000. So it's a very kind of youngish market for this ultra high net worth space. So the Portuguese, they're always going to be less because it's a smaller place, but they're always going to encourage more people to come in. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what tax arrangements come up to encourage that kind of that income tax reduction, whether it's a flat rate or something like that, which they may follow the Italian model.
So Roberto and I, are we considered skilled workers? Are we young enough? And
listen,
are
I'm
we
in real
rich
estate.
enough?
We're all in real estate.
You
Of course, we're skilled. Yeah,
you
We are all really
fine. We will have to see your appliance.
I have to squeeze this in because I just want to know. So, as a foreign buyer, can we talk about financing? How much finance can you get for how long a time period? What sort of interest rates are there?
Well, if you're a foreign buyer, you can apply for a mortgage, usually up to 60% of the value of the property, but it depends. Obviously, it's going to depend on the collaterals, etc., any guarantees that you can provide. But yes, foreigners usually, like Americans, like to apply to some kind of mortgage to finance part of the purchase. Usually, you can finance up till you're 70 years old. It's not like in the US that they cannot put this age restriction. We have the age restriction. But then all of this can be adjusted according to the client's profile, obviously.
What kind of
What
rate?
is the term? What is the term of? Can you get a 10-year mortgage? Can you get a 30-year mortgage? A lot of countries don't do that. We do.
Yes, you can, but it's going to depend on how old you are.
Okay, and then and what sort of interest rates right now?
Around 5%, a little less, depending on if it's a fixed rate, variable rate, well, etc.
Sure.
Yes. But if you want to apply for a mortgage for 30 years, you cannot be older than 40. Okay.
Wow.
So you can apply.
That's harsh, man. That's harsh.
We
Okay,
can
that's
all
me.
apply.
Don't ask, don't get, as they say.
Yeah.
Talk about transportation. You did mention that everybody flies into Lisbon and then they take smaller planes down to the Algarve. How easy is it to get around?
Well,
you can travel. You can travel from the top north of Portugal to the south, which is the Algarve, in 6 hours driving and by highway. So it's a small country, and you have international airport in Porto and in Lisbon and Faro. So it covers the north, the center, and the south, and it's very small country. And then you have internal flights all over.
Yes,
I looked at Faro Airport actually to see how many flights were coming in. So this is I would say Faro is probably your third biggest airport behind Lisbon.
Yes,
yes.
Now, so I mean, you can tell me, Sofia, if you know anything about the Lisbon, but Faro is boasting about 9.6 million passengers every year, just under 7,000 flights, 25 countries. In May this year, there was about 250 routes that were being flown. So I would say that majority of those routes are European. So it's very easy to travel to Faro and from the rest of Europe. From further afield, so from the US, it's not so easy yet to get flights direct to Faro. But as we've been saying, you fly direct into Lisbon and it's a 2.5-hour drive down.
And beautiful drive.
And yeah, it's an empty motorway. I love it. And then otherwise, you can take the train. The train system is getting better. It's a lot better than it was. But I would say probably more people are using a car than jumping on the train.
Yes. It's very easy to access the Lisbon airport through several direct flights, as I was saying. Mentioning the US, several direct flights every day. The airport has around 33 million passengers per year. It's a crazy busy airport, small, and it's very busy, but it works. And then you can easily rent a car and drive to the Algarve on the highway. Very easy to drive to Porto. And one of the biggest advantages is that for us in Lisbon, it's very easy to get on a plane and go to London, Paris, Madrid. It takes us 2.5 hours to London or Paris, 50 minutes to Madrid. And we have direct flights to all the major countries in Europe. So, and to Africa, because we have strong historical ties with Africa. So a big connection to some of the cities in Africa, Brazil, several flights a day, and even to Asia, we have some direct flights. So like Dubai or it's a very busy airport and it has a big offer. So it's Lisbon. It's a great place to connect to the rest of Europe.
Can I ask a question? So in the United States, particularly, and it became very popular during COVID, people here would go to Montana. They would buy a ranch. In Texas, they were buying ranches where there's 25 acres, 40 acres, 50 acres, just to have their own private Idaho, as we say here, just to have your own case that, you know, Armageddon happens in the world. There's a place to go. They can plant food, they can survive. We're talking, most of what we've talked about is all along the West Coast and the Southern coast. Inland, like going east, there's so much land. Is there opportunity, or are there people that are buying 25, 30 acres? And, you know, is the land of value? Is it rich? Can you farm? Can you, like, what is anybody doing any of that? And is there any market in that?
Absolutely. We just had a client from Knight Frank. She's in Switzerland, but she wants to bring her horses to Portugal. So she was looking for land to construct around 50 hectares, which I don't know the conversion in acres, I'm sorry. But it's pretty big land. She was looking to construct stables and a house, and she fell in love with the place we found her.
I think the quality of the housing itself, you just need to be, if you're going to go and do that, there's massive opportunity. The prices are still pretty low for you to buy a large parcel of land, a big estate, to have your own, you know, oasis, as you say. But I think you've got to work on the basis you're probably going to have to do work to a house. So you're going to have to renovate a lovely old period building, or even construct your own. So as long as you're comfortable with that, then I think, yeah, there's loads of opportunity like that. And we are beginning to see more and more people from across Northern Europe, you know, like our Swiss client that's now buying this wonderful estate. You know, they're looking for that space, and that complete privacy, and have horses and paddle courts and, you know, whatever you need, but not necessarily by the coast. So yeah, I agree with you. It's niche still, though. There aren't that many there, but that's why I think the opportunity is definitely there. And interestingly, some of the property that we're beginning to come into the market are internationally owned. So these are by people who literally were way ahead of the market, who went out and bought sort of, you know, 5-10 years ago, and maybe developed slightly a house, but it's not sort of turnkey product. So yeah, there's definitely opportunities.
One thing that might answer your question, Roberto, is you know the Porto wine, which is a very famous Portuguese wine. And in that area, that region, there are a lot of places that you can buy to make your own wine. So wine estates are very popular. There aren't a lot for sale, so that it's a very exquisite product. But there are beautiful pieces of land with these incredible historical houses where people buy. A lot of Americans love this kind of investment, to buy a property and build their own wine or their own Porto wine.
Wow, this has been a really great show. I want to express my sincere gratitude to our amazing guests, Sofia, Marta, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It was wonderful to be here.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you.
I've been remiss in not mentioning Knight Frank more. I have learned in the last hour the importance of having the right partner in a country like Portugal. Your deep knowledge of not only Lisbon, the Algarve, the transportation, the tax structure, the resale market, all of these things, I think it would be essential. And if I've learned one thing, it's the importance of having somebody who's so well connected in the region to guide me through the intricacies. The fact that I just learned that I can't get that 30-year mortgage, I mean, wow, that's devastating to me. You know, I got to get busy.
I'm sure you can, John.
I got to get busy and start looking. So anyway, I loved this show. If you love real estate like Roberto and I do, please help spread the word. Click, like, share this with all your friends. Tell everybody about Boroughs and Burbs. Review our show. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. And I hope to see you again. And we'll come back to Portugal and see if these predictions for high growth pan out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Bye-bye.